Hello, thanks for listening to the FLP, the Finance Leadership Podcast. It's a fortnightly focus on the latest information and news about the Finance Leadership Programme pathway to your CGMA designation. It's produced by AICPA and CIMA, together as the Association of International Certified Professional Accountants. You can find out more at AICPA.org and CIMAglobal.com. I'm Kevin Gormley, and I'm here with my colleague Chris Roberts today about the Case Study Review course, which is an integral part of a student's journey in preparing for their respective case study that they will sit at the end of each of the 3 levels during their FLP journey. So, hi Chris, welcome to the podcast. So really to kick things off today, I was hoping you could introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do and your role at the association, please.
Thanks, Kevin. Hi, everybody. My name is Chris Roberts. I am a manager of learner success at the association. So what that entails is working with students in the finance leadership program, getting their feedback on the product, and then working with our developers and making sure that feedback gets implemented. So we're constantly trying to improve and enhance the product. And so I'm making sure that the students' voices are heard when improving the FLP program, as well as the exam review course, which we'll be touching on today.
Now, obviously, at the time of recording this podcast, we are discussing everything relating to the current case study review course that's available in the Finance Leadership Programme at the moment. We may or may not enhance or change this in the future. So if we do, we will endeavour to update the students and learners of any changes or forthcoming changes at a time that suits best. And then obviously we'll notify you of how that impacts the use of the course and how that may affect any subsequent learning. So obviously anyone studying under the FLP pathway to CGMA will be vividly aware that there's a case study review course included in the programme. So could you maybe tell us the purpose and the value of the case study review course and its intention from a learner perspective?
Yeah, of course. So the exam review course that we offer in your subscription really helps you prepare for your particular case study exam. So as you know, there are 4 exam windows every year. And so when you schedule your exam, you're sitting for a particular window. And that window is going to have its own set of pre-seen materials, which is a case study that you're going to be asked several questions on. So the skills that you picked up in the competencies during the FLP learning, those are going to be applied in a case study scenario. So this course is really intended to help you take those skills you learned in the competencies and apply them to whatever case study you're looking at. And that's done through several different activities that we'll go over during this podcast.
Okay. Is there a structure or a sequence to follow when completing the case study review course?
Yes. So there is going to be several different pieces of the exam review course, and I'll kind of go over what those are. So there's a set of materials which we call our evergreen materials. And these are going to be study guides and resources that don't necessarily change from exam window to exam window. So some of the materials included in this include Introduction to Case Study Exams, to where you'll get a recorded webinar, to where a tutor will tell you this is what a case study exam is, and this is the types of questions that you'll be asked on the exam. Also talks about terminology and then other exam resources available to you. Another part of those evergreen materials are called the Core Activities course. So core activities actually represent the tasks that are most frequent, critical, and important in whatever role you're assuming on the case study exam. So in this core activities course, the instructor takes you through a past exam and how some of those core activities were brought up on a task in those exams. So it really helps you understand how the examiners are going to ask questions on this upcoming exam. Another part of this course is going to be the pre-seen analysis videos. So what these are recordings done by your class tutor where they go over the pre-seen materials, which are the materials that you're becoming familiar with, that the questions are going to be asked from on the exam. So in that debrief video, which is about 2 hours, the instructor goes through each page of those materials and talks about how some of these things might get asked on an exam. So it's really critical to watch that debrief video to get familiarized with the materials and to understand what the tutor is talking about in terms of why each of those pages is important and how it might come up on your exam. We also do offer a revision guide, which is going to be more or less a calendar for you during your exam review studies. So this revision guide includes all of the tasks and assignments in the exam review course, as well as some other resources that CIMA offers that'll help you prepare for your exam and really understand what needs to be done for your case study exam. Some other pieces of this course are going to be live webinars. So we do offer 2 live webinars per exam window, in which the instructor will go through some important aspects of the case study exams. We'll talk about these webinars a little bit later, as well as a few mock exams, some of which are graded, where you can get some feedback as well as a score, and then others are self-graded, to where you can compare your answers versus suggested solutions, as well as a debrief video from the tutor.
Okay, and those mock exams, Chris, just to be clear, those are based on the upcoming case study. They're not based on past papers?
That's correct. So the mock exams are going to be created by your class tutor and are specific to your set of pre-seen materials. So generally, there's anywhere between 4 and 6 mock exams offered per exam window. 2 of those mock exams are going to be graded. So you can remember I told you about that. So you have about a week to complete those mock exams and submit them. And within a couple days later, you're going to get some general feedback about your answers. It's not going to be incredibly detailed, but it does give you feedback on maybe where you needed to add more depth in your responses or some areas that you did really well. And then you get a score as well. So that really lets you know where you're at in terms of answering these types of questions and what you need to do to improve in the future.
So completing the mock exams is such an important thing to do, because I suppose that gives you a really good experience in dealing with the scenarios, the twists and the triggers that may come up in the exam, but also get you familiar with the concepts and the pre-seen material in a way that you can rationalize things in your mind. So when it comes to the real exam, it gives you a greater depth and width of knowledge in the existing pre-seen scenario. So they're really, really important, the mock exams. We do look at data of students that complete the mock exams, and there tends to be a very strong correlation between those who complete all aspects of the case study review course and those who don't in terms of success with the actual case study. So for the listeners, bear that in mind, that the mock exams are such an important element. Chris, if I was a student, first-time case study, typically, what would you expect in terms of time, what I would need to put aside, weeks, hours, to prepare properly for the case study?
It is time intensive, and so you are going to want to schedule a lot of time to dedicate towards your studies. So the pre-seen materials do come out 6 weeks prior to your exam window, and that's going to apply for November and May. So February and August actually reuse past pre-seen material from the previous exam window. So those pre-seen materials are already going to be available for you if you're in either of those sessions. As far as the November and the May sessions, though, they come out 6 weeks prior. So I would say about 8 weeks before your scheduled exam or the exam that you're targeting, you want to start looking at your exam review and start really preparing for the exam. You want to have all your competency learning done by that part, ideally, because you really want to dedicate 50 to 75, sometimes even 100 hours that you're going to need to set aside for studying. So about 8 weeks prior to the exam, you want to start looking at the evergreen materials, which I had talked about, to familiarize yourself with a case study exam, what to expect, the terminology, how you can take the exam, things like that, just to give yourself a good background knowledge of case study exams, so that by the 6 week mark, when the pre-seen materials come out, you're ready to crack on with that particular set of materials to where you're looking at your case study. And part of that is the pre-seen analysis I had talked about. So what's really nice is the tutor for the course actually gets the pre-seen materials about 3 weeks before students do. So when the pre-seen materials come out, their analysis video is already going to be available to you. So you're going to want to go through the pre-seen materials first, and then generate your own thoughts and ideas, and then go through the analysis video to see how those thoughts compare with the tutors.
And from our experience, students do not need any other resources to attempt the case study other than what's in the case study review course. Would that be a fair assumption?
Yes, that's correct. So we do have a lot of resources that are offered within this course. I had talked about the revision guide, and in the revision guide, we have several other resources. Some of these are PDF documents. Some are videos that have been done in the past. So those are going to supplement the actual materials in the course itself. But all you need is the exam review course and the materials that we reference within that course to pass. Now, that doesn't mean you don't have the option to go elsewhere if you wanted some more supplemental learning. That's completely up to you, but we found that the course itself is plenty for you to prepare for the exam. It'll give you at least 50 to 75 hours of preparation, which is plenty to pass this exam. We do recommend going through every part of the exam review course. So I told you we do offer 4 to 6 mock exams, just depending on the exam window. Go through all of those mock exams and really give yourself a couple hours to set aside for each mock exam. Try to imitate the exam conditions the best you can. So on the actual exam, you'll have 3 hours to complete the exam. Now, the exam review course doesn't give you any time restrictions to completing the mock exams, but we always recommend trying to imitate exam conditions just so you have a better idea of timing, how long you need to spend on each task, and giving yourself just a better idea of what it'll look like on exam day.
In the earlier part of the conversation, you talked about the webinars, Chris, and I think we were going to mention how they were structured and give a little bit more detail to listeners on what to expect within those webinars.
Yeah, so we do offer 2 webinars per exam window with 2 options per webinar. So we do know that FLP is a global course. So we offer 2 options per webinar just in case one of the timings for one of them does not work for you. So these sessions are recorded, but we really recommend attending live because you can have the opportunity to ask tutors some questions while on those webinars. But the content for those webinars can vary depending on the instructor. Typically, there's one webinar that's given at the beginning of the course, so within the first 2 weeks or so, and then one session that's typically the week before your actual case study exam. So the tutors can vary depending on what they think should be covered before the exam, but some of the content can be examples of exam tasks and how to answer them, how certain financial standards might be covered on that particular exam, how to structure your exam answers, and how to time them out and really give yourself the best opportunity to get the most out of these tasks. Sometimes they'll debrief a mock exam live, so they'll go through one of your mock exams and do a live debrief of how they would answer that, how to get maximum marks on your answers. And then what's really helpful, and one of the reasons why I think you should attend live, is they do give you the opportunity to ask questions and answer those while on the webinar. So this is going to be one of your only opportunities, if not your only opportunity, to get to interact with the exam review tutors. So definitely take advantage of those webinars. Give yourself the opportunity to ask a few questions. The length of these webinars are around 2 hours. Sometimes they're a little longer if the tutor decides to go over. But these are very valuable sessions to be able to interact with the tutor and really pick their brain on what might come up on an exam.
Great. Thanks, Chris. That's been a really useful conversation. And I suppose one thing I would, as from my experience in the past, and Chris, I'm sure you would agree, is that generally the feedback on the case study review course has largely been very positive from students in terms of content and usefulness. And we're seeing that come through in good pass rates with students that avail of this pathway to CTMA. So, not to labour the point too much, but I think it's really important that students complete the case study review course in as much detail as possible to really avail of all the valuable resources within it. For more information on FLP, go to enroll.cgma.org. We will link to any resources in the show notes, and there'll be links to everything that we've mentioned today. To view them, just click on the episode's info icon in the podcast app on your smartphone or tablet, or open the episode in your computer's web browser. You'll find everything right there. Thanks again to Chris Roberts, our guest, and of course, thank you for listening. Keep an eye out for any new podcasts in the next few weeks. From myself and Chris, I wish everyone a good day.
This podcast is designed to provide illustrative information with respect to the subject matter covered, and does not represent an official opinion or position of the AICPA or AICPA.org. It is provided with the understanding that the AICPA and AICPA.org are not engaged in offering legal, accounting, or other professional service. If such advice or expert assistance is required, the services of a competent professional person should be sought. The AICPA and AICPA.org make no representations, warranties, or guarantees as to, and assume no responsibility for, the content or application of the material contained herein, and especially disclaim all liability for any damages arising out of the use of, reference to, or reliance on such material.